All right, so let's see here today. Let me do the audio check as usual. Audio check, 1, 2. Looks like there's a small lag. There we go. Check, check. All right, get back to reading. As usual, the description is in the description box, YouTube channel. This is a read-along for personal growth as well as growth out there, as well as a way of keeping me on point, reading all these articles for the whole year. I will make my comments or analysis at the end of each article. I try not to keep it too long. If anybody comments in the comments boxes, I'll reply, read your comments, see if you have any ideas or thoughts or analysis to contribute yourself to the article. All right, we will start today with Imperialist Comes to Haiti with a Blackface. Written or published by Nato Corey, June 26, 2024. We start with a photo, a UN police officer in Haiti, credit U.S. Marine Corps raw pixel. And the article reads, the first wave of unbacked Kenyan police officers has arrived in Haiti. The first wave of UN-backed Kenyan police officers has arrived in Haiti with 400 rounds landing, with around 400 landing in Port-au-Prince. Meanwhile, mass mobilization have covered the streets of Nairobi, Kenya, opposing an IMF-backed finance bill that would have further choked Kenya's economy and exacerbated existing crisis of living standards for the Kenyan people. Demonstrations opposing the finance bill have been met with intense police violence, resulting in 200 injured, over 200 people massacred, and over 20 people massacred, and many arrested. Kenya's population is rising up against the finance bill and rejecting a deeper plunder into crippling poverty. While an internal crisis unfolds at home, Kenya's President William Ruto is willfully helping the United States and its allies lead another foreign intervention in Haiti to quell any popular movements and resistance under the guise of a, quote, commitment to Pan-Africanism, end quote, security and peacekeeping. Kenya leads the fourth foreign intervention in Haiti. The Kenyan police in Haiti will be joined by officers from the Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, Benin, Chad, and Jamaica, totaling 2,500 officers. According to the UN Security Council, the deployment, costing $600 million annually, will be carried out in phases. So far, the UN-administered fund for the mission has received only $18 million in contributions from Canada, France, and the U.S. However, the U.S. has pledged a total of $300 million in support. The arrival of the Kenyan officers marks a continuation of foreign military intervention in Haiti, following the UN's 2004 to 2017 failed, quote, peacekeeping mission, end quote, marred by allegations of sexual assault by its troops and staffers. Furthermore, peacekeepers from Nepal were blamed for introducing cholera into Haiti's largest river in October 2010, resulting in the death of over 10,000 Haitian people. Although the UN has acknowledged its role in the epidemic and the lack of sufficient effort to combat it, it has not explicitly admitted to introducing the disease. It's proven that foreign intervention by historical imperialist bodies have caused financial strangulation, structural instability, and stagnation in Haiti. Additionally, international organizations have expressed concerns over the deployment of Kenyan police officers, given their own human rights abuses and allegations of police brutality in Kenya during demonstrations. If these countries wanted to help Haiti, they would get rid of all the oligarchs who fund the paramilitary groups on the ground, take away their control of the ports where the weapons and drugs are coming from, have severe investigations for their corruption scandals, and hold them accountable to their crimes against the Haitian people. There has never been a project to support the Haitian people in building much needed infrastructure like schools, roads, hospitals, and housing. Instead, they come to terrorize the population, protect the interest of the Haitian elite, and maintain a social order that benefits U.S. imperialism. The solution to anything related to Haiti has always been brutal force and intervention. Popular uprisings against the 2024 finance bill in Kenya. The same police officers being deployed to Haiti are also violently cracking down on the popular mobilizations against the finance bill approved by Kenya's MPs earlier in June. For over a week, thousands of Kenyans took to the streets of Nairobi against the IMF backed finance bill that included new levies on basic commodities such as bread, vegetable oil, and sugar. While demonstrations took place, Kenyan police officers fired live bullets and tear gas into crowds of hundreds outside the parliament and arrested dozens, which included social justice movement organizers. On June 26, during the television address, President Ruto announced his withdrawal of the finance bill. His withdrawal is indicative of the mass protests that swept the country in opposition to a deeply unpopular bill put forth by members of parliament. At this stage, it is unclear that the new amendments to the bill will look like what the new amendments to the bill will look like, and Ruto's statements indicates there will be further proposed austerity measures. Regardless, this is a clear victory for the Kenyan people. President William Ruto's staunch support and defense of the West. On June 24th, Biden designated Kenya a, quote, major non-NATO ally, end quote, making it the fourth African nation to receive this designation. Other major non-NATO African allies are Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia. Biden first announced the decision in May when he hosted Kenyan President Ruto at the White House for a lavish state visit, the first by an African head of state since 2008. This designation greenlights the sale, export, and grant of defense services, articles, and training to Kenya from the U.S. Kenya's strategic location on Africa's eastern coast. Natural harbor, modern transport corridors linking it to the Great Lakes region, and tech-savvy and ethically diverse population of 56 million make it attractive to the U.S. Excuse me. That whole sentence, pause. That whole sentence was a handful. Let me read it again. This designation greenlights the sale, export, and grant of defense services, articles, and training to Kenya from the U.S. Kenya's strategic location on Africa's eastern coast, natural harbor, modern transport corridors linking it to the Great Lakes region, and tech-savvy and ethnically diverse population of 56 million make it attractive to the U.S. as it seeks to counter Russia and China's growing influence and collaboration in Africa. President Ruto may tout himself as a staunch pro-Western ally, but he is demonstrating himself to be merely an extension of U.S. imperialism in the Caribbean. Imperialism is historically rooted in exploitation and subjugation, causing immense suffering across continents. The Kenyan government, by extension, wants to diminish the sovereignty and self-determination of Haitian people while preserving the neo-colonial interest of the U.S. despite the Kenyan government's attempt to cozy up to the U.S. and other Western allies. They have been met with fierce opposition by popular mobilization on the ground in Haiti and Kenya. Haiti has solidarity with Kenya itself. This real Pan-African solidarity comes from the fight for Haitian sovereignty against another Western-backed intervention. In this new phase, organizations and people's movements have to continue fighting against all U.S. UN interventions in Haiti. All right, my bullet points on this. So when it comes to working class solidarity, this is what's important, right? The Haitian and the Kenyan people have been pressed to the brink of starvation, a lot of them are in poverty, to the point where now they all have to come together as a community, as the working class, as the proletariat, to defy their governments or even to overthrow their governments. And this is how you actually win demands for the workforce, for the working people. And it's better if you do these things even before it's too late, even before you go hungry or before your neighbors go hungry, because then you have more leverage. Don't forget that these corporations and these governments have no power without the workforce. We are the power. We are the democracy that we are looking for. Um, as stated in the article, as commented in the article, they could have brought investigations to root out the corrupt CEOs, to root out the CEO government, the corrupt governments, politicians. They could have brought aid for better health care, for better education, for better housing for the people. But no, what did they bring? They just brought a new team of replacement ghouls, practically imperialist ghouls, to try to reorganize the nation so that they can keep extracting resources uh, from that nation, from the people, from Kenya, from Haiti, right? Um, so it's really, those are really important key points here, that we need to support the people, not the governments, not the patriotic governments here or there or anywhere. You need to support, you need to have working class solidarity internationally with all people around the world. Don't forget that the most oppressed people are always the poor people, and then they're deemed criminals, and then they're caged up, and then they're re-released, and then their next generation is caged up and re-released, just perpetuating this cycle of crime and poverty, right? But you never see them caging up billionaires or millionaires, uh, or trying to rehabilitate anybody for that matter. So, uh, on this article, great article again, what we need to do is support the Kenyan and the Haitian people with working class solidarity for a true democracy. Cool. Let me check here. So that was here. Let's see. It's going to be a light week. Last week we left off on racist pro-Israel campaign on seats of Rep. Jamal Bowman. Saw that coming. Imperialism comes to Haiti with a black face. We've been talking about that for weeks. Whistleblower of U.S. war crimes, Julian Assange freed. All right, so this should be a solid article. So it doesn't look like they posted many articles this week, likely because it was a 4th of July break. So yeah, so I get to catch up on articles I'm behind. And I'll probably go a little slower on my reading here. Let me handle these curtains, these coins. There we go. All right, let's move on here. Let me do an audio check one more time, make sure all the signals are good. So this is what you do when you run a little one-man show kind of project. You just check things for yourself. Cool. Right. So next article here. Take another sip. Article titled Whistleblower of U.S. War Crimes Julian Assange Freed by Benjamin Sinovich, June 26, 2024. Photo is of Julian Assange after his release on a flight to Australia. Credit WikiLeaks. Ex-WikiLeaks. All right. Article reads, on July 12, 2007, 2 U.S. Army Apache helicopters were hovering over the Al Amin al Thaniya neighborhood of Baghdad in Iraq. The helicopters were observing groups of men below in the streets, later to be revealed to include 2 journalists for Reuters. In the video, an Apache crew member request authorization, claiming one man had a rocket-propelled grenade. This was later debunked, and it was actually a telephoto lens by Reuters photojournalist Namir Noor Eldin. After receiving the go-ahead, the Apache crew strafes the group of men with 30-millimeter machine gun rounds, machine guns that have a practical rate of fire of 300 rounds per minute. As these unarmed men are torn apart in a matter of seconds, the Apache crew members joke with each other on the audio recording, saying, "Ha ha ha," quote, "ha ha ha, I hit him," end quote, while the other crew member responds, quote, "Oh yeah, look at those dead bastards," end quote. What could have been just another normal and unknown instance of U.S. war crimes in Baghdad now lives as a mark of shame on the long history of U.S. imperialist crimes, known today as the, quote, collateral murder, end quote, tapes. The only difference is this act of imperialist cruelty was courageously published by WikiLeaks and its founder, Julian Assange. This week, after more than a decade of persecution, attempts to illegally extradite and even assassinate Julian Assange, the journalist who exposed these crimes of Washington returned to Australia after striking a plea deal with the U.S. Department of Justice, sparing him any additional prison time. The deal can only be seen as a victory for those that have tirelessly dedicated themselves to the legal defense and international solidarity efforts to ensure that the truths revealed by Assange and WikiLeaks cannot be smothered into silence and complicity. The political imprisonment of Assange by the United States, using the United Kingdom as a willing assistant along the way, was nothing but a failed attempt to punish those that bring horrors of the Pentagon out of the darkness. WikiLeaks' role in exposing the U.S. war crimes. The great import of WikiLeaks reporting exceeds not just that of the U.S. war on Iraq and Afghanistan. In 2011, WikiLeaks released cables that highlighted the role of the U.S. Embassy in Honduras, led by Hillary Clinton's State Department under the Obama administration, played in the 2009 coup that overthrew democratically elected President Manuel Zelaya. After Zelaya was ousted, the U.S. Embassy immediately began contacting Honduran capitalists and elites to accept the removal of the president. In the same year, a U.S. Embassy cable released by WikiLeaks confirmed what the Bolivian government in 2009 alleged regarding a U.S. government conspiracy to assemble a team to assassinate the Bolivian president Evo Morales, while senior U.S. diplomat Krishna Ers originally denied U.S. involvement. The cable revealed that a key financial backer of the plan was a, quote, close embassy contact, end quote, to the mission of U.S. Embassy in Bolivia. In 2010, WikiLeaks published around 76,000 leaked U.S. intelligence documents regarding Washington's occupation of Afghanistan. The leak ended up totaling over 91,000 documents relating to the Afghan war, one of the largest in U.S. military history. The logs revealed that hundreds of civilians were killed in unreported incidents. Further, the leaks ran contrary to the narrative put out by the Pentagon that the U.S. operation was winning the hearts and minds of the people of Afghanistan. The documents revealed many acts by the United States in Afghanistan, including details regarding the usage of Reaper drones to assassinate individuals remotely from a base in Nevada, and paying off local Afghan media to run stories friendly to U.S. interests. For decades, the United States has been forced to conceal and hide its true aims of economic and political domination of the globe, cloaking these goals in noble causes, such as the pursuit of, quote, democracy, end quote, and, quote, human rights, end quote. Without these fabrications, the people of the U.S. would not tolerate the horrors and terrorism that is carried out in their name and by their dime. Julian Assange cast a spotlight on these illusions. His release should not only be a cause for celebration, but a call to pursue justice against the criminals he and WikiLeaks exposed. All right, my quick analysis on this. Well, not quick analysis, but so my analysis on this in general is that, yeah, it's important to understand that any kind of intervention by the U.S. that involves wars, that involves the use of military, is not a good intervention. It's not a good faith act by the U.S. to bring "quote unquote" democracy to those nations. It's just more imperialism. It's just more of the military-industrial complex spreading its wings to create more profit. Uh, and not only that, but if the U.S. Really has good intentions with these nations, then why be so secretive, right? Uh, Things that are done under cover of light in the darkness are usually done because it's not convenient for the public to know, because they're not going to look well upon the people creating or um, expediting these crimes or these interventions, or whatever, or their manifestations, whatever you want to call it. Um, so yeah, people, and of course, they tried to make an example of Julian Assange, but it's a losing battle to hide the truth, because you might be able to silence someone like Julian Assange, but like him, there is many people out there that might have the moral character to release this kind of information because they saw it as wrong. Let's take, for example, people like Edward Snowden, uh, uh, Chelsea Manning, uh, you know, people that are whistleblowers, that even though they weren't supposed to release information, they found it their actual patriotic duty to humanity, not to the US, but to humanity, to actually release this information that exposes the actual crimes of our government that they justify with democracy. Um, so we always have to keep in mind that not all laws are just or moral just because they're laws. We have to use not some common sense, but some deep searching, some deep critical thinking skills to understand and come up with a reasoning of what if what's being done is right or wrong, right? For me, it personally comes down to the study of dialectical materialism, where it teaches you about socialism, communism, capitalism, and the contradictions of capitalism and wealth and power, and how it always oppresses poorer people. I also use the four Stoic pillars. When you study Stoicism, you learn about the virtues of Stoicism, which the pillars are knowledge, temperance, and justice. I always forget one. Knowledge, temperance, justice. It'll come up in a second. Actually, let me see if I can pull it up real quickly here. All right, almost done here. So it's temperance, moderation, self-discipline, resistance, temptation, justice, doing the right thing, acts of the common good, wisdom, lifelong journey of truth and learning, and courage, being bold, brave, standing up for yourself, and standing up for others, for that matter. So, yeah, I kept forgetting courage. But courage is important, right? Because courage is the one where once you have the other three, you have to have the courage to stand up and do the right thing, even though it's not popular. Cool. But those are the four pillars. There's others. There's much more to study in regards to that. Um, but it's a good guide. It's a good guide towards critical thinking, uh, towards understanding how to be a virtuous person in regards to if you're trying to be the best person you can be, you're already being virtuous, no matter how flawed you may be. All right, let's carry on to the next article. And by the way, yes, I'm very happy Julian Assange is free. Let me see. All right, next article. Let's get this going while I have a little drink of water again. I gotta tattoo these on me somewhere. Wisdom, courage, temperance, and justice. All right, next article. All right, just another great example of how capitalism is ghoulish. Article headline reads, California's community solar program undermined by for-profit interest of utility companies, by Tina Landis, June 29th, 2024. Photo, a team installs solar panels in Irvine, California. Credit Thomas Kelsey, U.S. Department of Energy Solar Decathlon. Tina Landis is author of the book Climate Solutions Beyond Capitalism. You may be under the impression that California, oh, you know what? That's what I forgot to do. Audio check. Chat check. All good. All right, let's get back to the reading here. You may be under the impression that California is leading the United States in the renewable energy transition, but that state recently took a major step backwards. On May 30th, the California Public Utilities Commission voted 3-1, rejecting a plan that could have boosted the state's community solar battery projects by 8 gigawatts, which could power around 800,000 homes. The plan, called the Net Value Billing Tariff, could have increased California's solar energy production by 17% of current levels. Despite backing from a broad coalition of forces, solar companies, farmers, environmental justice organizations, local unions, consumer advocates, and both Republican and Democratic state legislation, the CPUC sided with privately owned utilities, continued control over the state's energy system. Instead of voting for support community solar expansion, the CPUC instead ordered the state's for-profit energy provider, Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric, to restructure the distributed solar programs to restructure their distributed solar programs that for more than a decade have done little to nothing to expand solar energy in the state. Passed last September, State Assembly Bill 2316 ordered the CPUC to establish a new affordable and equitable community solar program that would increase development. The bill attempted to address the failings of the Commission's existing programs that only expanded community solar capacity by 163 megawatts over several years, which translates to energy capacity for around 16,000 of the 14.5 million homes in the state. The 20 state legislators who backed AB 2316 warned that without the NVBT, the state would likely fail to meet its renewable energy and climate goals. CPUC ruling only benefits private utilities companies. PG&E, the largest private utility in the United States, will benefit once again from its close relationship with the CPUC. Just last year, the CPUC voted in favor of a $13.5 billion revenue requirement for PG&E, which has resulted in a 13% increase in customers' bills, increasing energy rates to double what they were in 2019. PG&E has a long history of criminal negligence that has not only caused property damage but taken many lives across California, from toxic from the toxic waste they illegally dumped in Hinckley that poisoned the town's drinking water to their gas line explosion that destroyed an entire neighborhood in San Bruno and killed 8 people, to their aging transmission infrastructure that has sparked untold numbers of wildfires across the state. PG&E faulty power infrastructure sparked 1,500 fires between 2014 and 2017 alone, with the most tragic incident to date, the 153,000-acre campfire, killing 84 and destroying the town of Paradise in 2018, among many other crimes. This late CPUC ruling that benefits PG&E and other private utilities in the state will mean a much slower and more expensive transition to solar. Previously in 2022, the CPUC slashed payments to homeowners with solar who were selling excessive energy back to the grid. This resulted in a crash in the solar market throughout the state. All right, this is a really important point. So let me read this again very carefully. Previously, in 2022, the CPUC slashed payments to homeowners with solar who were selling excessive energy back to the grid. This resulted in a crash in the solar market throughout the state and major industry job losses at a time when we needed a major expansion of renewable to combat climate change. The following year, the Commission again cut solar incentives, limiting the payments to excess energy produced, this time targeting solar at schools, businesses, and multi-unit apartment buildings. California lags behind other states in community solar programs, producing only 1% of the 6.28 gigawatts of energy provided through community solar programs in 22 states. The MVBT would have allowed community solar projects to earn a steady revenue from the power produced, incentivizing expansion of clean energy and battery storage. Through the revenue earned by selling excess energy back to the grid, low-income residents would have seen reduced utility rates. For communities of color and low-income communities in the United States, utilities often take up a large portion of household income, becoming an even larger percentage of income with PG&E's ever-increasing rates. In general, California is missing the mark to meet its goal of 40% greenhouse gas emissions reductions below 1990 levels by 2030. At the current trajectory, the state would need to triple the rate of emissions reductions made since 2010. Considering this shortfall and the urgency of the climate crisis that is severely impacting the state through extreme drought and heat waves to increasingly destructive wildfires and floods, you would think the state would be employing every possible resource to rapidly reduce emissions. Solar and wind are currently the lowest cost energy source and the quickest to deploy, yet the state actually went into the opposite direction and saw a 3.5% increase in emissions from the energy sector between 2019 and 2021. In order to meet its climate goals, the state must reduce energy sector emissions by 6.3% annually between 2021 and 2035. Lack of state support for renewable adoption that makes it unaffordable for community solar to be significantly expanded, as well as the stranglehold that private utilities have on the energy sector, are to blame. Expanding community solar microgrids, which was the goal of NVBT, could help to rapidly reduce emissions from the energy sector. Microgrids run independently but can share energy with a larger grid. This increases resilience to outages during extreme weather events, unlike a centralized grid that can suffer widespread outages impacting millions. Microgrids also reduce energy costs and reduce energy loss from transmission across long distances. Under capitalism, community solar microgrids are a threat to private utility profits. In the end, ensuring continued profits for the ruling elite outweighs implementing real climate solutions in any meaningful way. New Cold War on China impedes real climate solutions. In general, the United States lags far behind in renewable capacity compared to China, which is leading the world in renewable energy capacity with nearly 4 times greater capacity than the United States. China also produces 77.8% of the world's solar modules at a far lower cost than any other country due to economies of scale. The US tariffs on Chinese goods are another impediment to the rapid shifts to renewables. Despite claims of concern for climate change, the Biden administration recently approved an increase on the tariff on Chinese solar cells to 50%, in addition to the 102% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, which will only strengthen the barriers to climate solutions being implemented. Let's read how ghoulish Biden was again on this. The U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods are another impediment to the rapid shifts to renewables. Despite claims of concern for climate change, the Biden administration recently approved an increase on the tariff on Chinese solar cells to 50%, in addition to the 102% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, which will only strengthen the barriers to climate solutions being implemented. Under socialism, in a wealthy country like the United States, an equitable transition to renewable energy could rapidly be achieved, and resources and technology would be shared across borders, speeding up the transition to an ecologically sustainable world. Need we say more about how ghoulish this system is? It's always profits before the health of the people. Like they already make record profits, and they still find ways to screw over the working class to make more record profits. Um, this is insane. I mean, we live in a finite planet with finite resources. Eventually, they run out, or eventually, the planet gets exacerbated by the pollution or the plundering of its minerals. Right. Um, Renewable energy is only a band-aid, really, in my opinion, towards what needs to be done in order to literally save humanity, because the planet will evolve with or without us, right? We need renewable energy because it's healthier, but all this renewable energy uh, might reduce the carbon footprint, where the carbon footprint is only really at the manufacturing point, not at the point of use. But it doesn't justify uncapped growth. Uh, um, there was a time when humanity wasn't multiplying so quickly. Don't forget that if we look at the statistics, population growth, like world population growth, I just want the numbers of how many human beings were here 100 years ago as compared to today. Today, there are more than 8 billion of us. But after a period of very fast population growth, demographers expect the world population to peak by the end of this century. Okay, so here's an estimate. This is from population growth, our world in data. And this is just a simple fact I'm going to throw out here. Over the last few centuries, the human population has gone through an extraordinary change. In 1800, there were only 1 billion people. Today, there are more than 8 billion of US. So, in the range of about 200 years, we haven't doubled population, we haven't tripled, we have multiplied by 8 our population. We have 8 times more people on Earth now than we had 200 years ago. And that is, to me, unsustainable. And I'm not saying we need to start not having babies. I'm just saying we can't continue in that trajectory of unmeasured growth. We need to educate people. We need to provide people with the adequate education and tools so that they understand that there is no need to be having 4, 5, or 6 kids. There is no real need to be having kids at all to begin with. This is just a choice, a personal choice for people. But it's a selfish choice to be having like 10 kids, to be having more than 2 kids in general for a couple to replace themselves, right? I think that's the big picture that most people never want to talk about how we can't have uncapped population growth forever. Eventually, people are going to have to get it that we just don't need to be growing at this rate and exacerbating the resources on the planet. Because when crap hits the fan, uh, whether it's a nuclear holocaust or some kind of Armageddon, world virus, whatever knocks out the overgrowth of human population on Earth, Earth is not going to miss us. Earth is just going to do Earth and restructure itself, right? So my point here is that this all ties into this whole profit system here that we have, where they see that lobbyists see that their corporations aren't making money unless they create policies that again screw over the poor people, so that we are paying twice as much for a car that China is maybe only paying $10,000 for. Those BYD cars are like $10,000 in China, and in order for them to be imported to America, it's another 102% tariff, which already makes it over $20,000 for the car, plus the profit margins that they have to raise them to sell them here, right? The same with solar cells at 50%. This is ridiculous. These are things that are actually helpful. Why is the U.S. doing this? It's for profitable reasons. They want people in America to buy American products, even though they can't afford American products because they barely get paid a living wage. So you can see how this is just a ghoulish system, a capitalist system that really doesn't care about the working class. It doesn't care if you're suffering. All it cares about is profit margins for those who already have generational wealth that want to keep hoarding wealth, while all people are trying to do is just pay their rent and have decent food. All right, let's move along. Project 2025 gets a head start with SCOTUS. All right. I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to catch up today. Today's a good day. Let me check with the audio again. Audio check, 1, 2. Audio is good. Video is good as well. And no comments so far. Let me make sure the comments section is good. All right. Cool. Let's move along to the next article. Project 2025 gets head start with SCOTUS ruling overturning Chevron doctrine. Article by Jane Cutter, June 29th, 2024. On June 28th, in Loper Bright Enterprises et al. V. Raimondo, Secretary of Commerce et al., the Supreme Court negated a legal precedent dating back to its decision in 1984's Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council. This will have the impact of dramatically undercutting the power of government agencies, transferring power from the executive branch staffed by civil servants to Congress and the courts. The court, in a majority decision written by Chief Justice Roberts, said that, quote, agencies have no special competence, end quote, and that judges should determine the meaning of federal laws. The Chevron decision is the basis for 70 Supreme Court decisions and as many as 1,700 lower court decisions upholding regulations coming from laws such as the 1938 Fair Labor Standard Act, the 1970 Clean Air Act, and the 2010 Affordable Care Act, and others. Chevron gave agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, Food and Drug Administration, and others leeway in interpreting and implementing vaguely written federal laws. Now the court is saying that these agencies, which are staffed by civil servants, many by relevant professional expertise, have, quote, no special competence, end quote, and that the courts and Congress are the only ones who can interpret federal laws, even in the face of new significant knowledge or economic and technological developments. Right-wing activists and operatives, many with ties to large corporations as well as Trump supporters, are applauding the decision in Loper Bright. Quote, overturning Chevron was a shared goal of the conservative movement and the Trump administration. It was expressed constantly, said Mandy Gunaskera, who served as chief of staff at the EPA under President Trump and has helped write Project 2025, a political blueprint for a next Republican administration. It creates a massive opportunity for these regulations to be challenged, and it could galvanize additional momentum towards reining in the administrative state writ large if the administration changes in November, end quote. NYT, New York Times. Project 2025. Project 2025 is not simply a policy blueprint spearheaded by the Heritage Foundation. It is billed as the quote, playbook for the first 180 days, end quote, of a new administration. Quote, our goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state, end quote, Project 2025. In essence, Project 2025 is the Trump program, a program to fundamentally alter the form of the capitalist government in this country by eliminating thousands of federal employees and replacing them with political appointees. The vision is that this will enable them to get rid of all of the obstacles to maximum profit going back to labor laws passed in the 1930s, as well as the civil rights laws of the 1960s, as well as environmental protection. There is a struggle within the elite echelons of capitalist government, though so far in actual practice as opposed to rhetoric. Those elites who don't support this extreme right-wing vision have capitulated time and time again to the far right. This inter-ruling class political struggle is a product of growing contradictions engendered by existential capitalist crisis. Each day, it becomes more and more clear that capitalism cannot solve the problems faced by humanity and the planet, and more people are turning to socialism for a solution. The capitalists cannot solve catastrophic climate change or the threat of World War III. How can they? They are the cause of these crises. Instead of thinking about a sustainable Earth for future generations, they are focused on maximizing profit for next quarter's statement. Regardless of whether Trump or Biden sits in the White House in 2025, the capitalist ruling class will hold power. Following this ruling, as far as the legal struggle is concerned, decades of progressive reforms, which were adopted as a result of intense periods of class struggle, are in danger of being overturned by reactionary judges and legislators, all because these reforms and regulations infringe on the all-important, quote, right, end quote, of capitalists to make the highest profit. What the capitalists want to forget is that the struggle that brought these reforms into existence has not been extinguished. In fact, the class struggle in the United States has been on an upward trajectory for more than 10 years. Workers, young people in particular, are rejecting capitalism and looking to a socialist future to resolve the crisis we face. All revolutionary and progressive people should fight the evisceration of laws that protect workers, public health, and the environment. Feature image of Supreme Court by Mike Ruland, CC by NCAA, blah, blah, blah. All right. So, yeah, like the article states, it doesn't matter who gets elected. When the Democrats had the House, when they had all three branches of government, they did nothing to codify things like Roe v. Wade or to make law stronger so that this could never happen under Republican rule. On the other hand, when Republicans have all three branches of government, they go out of their way to deregulate and make it weaker so that capitalist investors can have an edge against the working class. Because, as you know, judges, like the Supreme Court, are not elected, they are selected. And someone like Biden, when he had all branches of government, could have easily added more judges, right? So that he could have gotten laws to go through. I mean, honestly, the judges shouldn't even exist. They're not elected. So those are my thoughts on this. I think it's sad that people keep getting duped into the ratchet effect where they think if they vote blue, they're going to somehow take a step forward when all you're doing is taking a step forward to take two steps back. And when you vote red, you're just taking a step back, right? So in the end, you're taking a step back either way. This is, I mean, there's studies, there's journalists, there's scholars that have already proven that this isn't a democracy; it's an oligarchy, and the rulers are the corporations. The politicians are just sock puppets. Project 2025. Why didn't Biden have a Project 2020 or Project 2021 to help everybody out with his campaign promises? Oh, I know why. Because he said he beat Medicare. Total ghoul. It's unfortunate that so many people just, I don't know if they're lazy or too distracted most of the time. There's for all reasons, are so easily just duped or conned into these snake oil elections and these snake oil salesman candidates that really offer no democracy and no real answers. When we have people like Joe Stein and Claudia de la Cruz that are actually offering good suggestions, good ideas, good policies to make the world a better place for everybody, not just the ruling elite. All right, so that was Project 2025. Last article for today, the U.S. national security state is spying on you through your mail. All right, this is going to be a heavy one. I can tell. Oh, 3 minutes. That's not too bad. Checking the audio again, making sure we're good for the night. Audio check, 1, 2. All right, audio is good. Video is good as well. Sorry, I should look more into this into this monitor here. All right. Take a sip for the last article for tonight. U.S. national security state is spying on you through your mail. Article by Chris Garaffa, June 30th, 2024. 3-minute read. The photo is a post office and distribution facility in Portland, Oregon. Here we go. Between 2015 and 2023, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service inspected over 312,000 letters and packages, making notes on the sender and recipient of the parcel. The USPIS does this at the request of the federal and state agencies, including the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, the IRS, and ICE. USPIS is a branch of the U.S. Postal Service. The information was initially reported by the Washington Post in response to a 2023 letter to the USPIS Chief Postal Inspector from Senator Ron Wyden and 7 other senators questioning the program. Over 60,000, quote, mail cover, end quote, requests to USPIS were received in that time period, with 97% being approved. The requests are approved for an initial period of 30 days, which may be extended for up to 120 days. There is no external oversight over the approval process, and a judge does not need to approve the application or the request. While further details on the 2015 to 2023 period are not publicly available, a 2014 report from the USPS Office of the Inspector General notes that 21% of these requests it reviewed from 2013, quote, were approved without written authorization, and 13% were not adequately justified or reasonable grounds or not transcribed accurately, end quote. Further, the report, quote, found 928 mail covers in active status after the cover periods ended, end quote, meaning that even after the approval period had expired, surveillance was allowed to continue. History of mail surveillance. The method of mail cover surveillance has been part of Postal Service regulations since 1879. While they remain legal under U.S. law, in the 1978 case, United States versus Choate, a judge of the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals suggested that that a mail cover is a search and seizure by the government. In her opinion, Circuit Judge Shirley Hufstetler wrote, quote, it is apparent that mail covers fall squarely within Supreme Court Fourth Amendment precedents, which hold that an amendment is implicated when the government searches and seizes private objects and information, even though they are temporarily in public custody or even a public place, end quote. Hufstetler also remarked that, quote, the mail cover used in combination with other techniques quickly makes the subject's life an open book to investigators, end quote, exposing the privacy dangers of mail covers being used to then gather information from a bank or other source, for example. This observation is even more applicable decades later in the digital age, when the national surveillance state is ingesting massive amounts of information on every email, text, and phone call we send and every website we visit. The information available from the outside of an envelope, who it is from, who it is addressed to, when and where it was mailed, does not give away the exact contents of the letter inside. Similar to the quote to and quote from and quote sent at end quote columns in an email inbox, this type of information is known as metadata, or data that provides information about other data, While the specifics of the letter or messages are not revealed, intelligence and law enforcement agencies can still use this information to target individuals and groups. We kill people based on metadata. At a forum in 2014 at Johns Hopkins University, former CIA and NSA head Michael Hayden said, quote, "We kill people based on metadata," end quote. Hayden was responding to outrage at the NSA's mass spying after Edward Snowden exposed PRISM, X-Keyscore, Upstream, and other surveillance programs, revealing that the agency partnered with private internet, social media, and telecommunications companies to collect vast amount of metadata and data on people across the world. The mail cover program is not the only instance of the U.S. government wielding its massive surveillance powers on postal mail. The CIA's HT Lingual program ran from 1952 until 1973 and was exposed by the 1975 Church Committee report in the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence as one of a massive number of surveillance and other intelligence abuse programs run by the CIA, FBI, and NSA. 28 million letters were examined at CIA locations outside of the mail cover program, and over 200,000 pieces of mail were illegally opened. The program targeted anti-war and civil rights activists, academics, scientists, artists, writers, and more. And those whose mail was read include Martin Luther King Jr. and John Steinbeck. HT Lingual and the other surveillance programs of the time were put in place to attack dissent during the Cold War and the civil rights and anti-war movements. The national security state operates within the law when the law favors it, and outside the law when the law hinders it. The breadth and depth of its reach into our personal lives, from location data and text messages to physical mail, may seem an insurmountable challenge, but history shows us differently. An organized, principled struggle and movement against suppression in any of its forms, war and colonial occupation, racism and other forms of bigotry, economic injustice and other deprivation of civil liberties, is capable of victory against even the most well-funded opponent in power. Let's read that last sentence again. An organized, principled struggle and movement against oppression in any of its forms, war and colonial occupation, racism and other forms of bigotry, economic injustice, and the deprivation of civil liberties, is capable of victory against even the most well-funded opponent in power. The government isn't spying on us to save people. It's spying on us to save itself, to create a demand for itself, just like it charges taxes to create a need for currency. And don't forget, like the article says, it spies on people like Martin Luther King Jr. It spies on activists. It spies on people that are anti-war. Why spy on people that are anti-war? They're obviously not terrorists. They're obviously not trying to start trouble. They're trying to end wars. Why are you spying on them? Because you want to criminalize the activism so that there can be a clear lane for war profiteers. It's that simple. Any kind of surveillance to me should be illegal. If the government really cared about its people, it would uplift it through programs and education. It wouldn't need all these covert operations to protect it from outside forces, quote unquote outside forces, right? So we always have to be vigilant and rationalize and come to terms that we live in a system that is not meant to work for the people. 3 branches of government were designed to work for the elite, to work for the the empire, right? For the bourgeoisie. And the working class should unite together as a working class always to fight for its own rights. Because don't forget, these they warp the laws to make them laws when it's convenient to them. So making something a law and criminalizing something doesn't make it just, doesn't make it morally correct. Critical thinking makes it correct, makes it morally just. Your government's not going to do it. We can talk more about that. Let me see what else. It goes back to the 4 pillars of Stoicism that I mentioned earlier. You should always ask yourself to have temperance, knowledge, courage, and justice, right? What else is out here? All right, so looks like Liberation News hasn't had an article up since this last one here on June 30th, likely because it's been a holiday week, and even though most of us on the far left probably don't celebrate 4th of July, we do like spending time with loved ones and spreading love and knowledge when we have the free time. So I hope everyone had an excellent holiday week and weekend. Don't forget to stay strong and always keep reading. Knowledge is power, and spreading the knowledge is love. Have a great day and goodbye.